Today we're going to be talking about this, the Fujifilm 27mm f2.8. Hey guys, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be talking about this, the 27mm from Fujifilm. This is the 2.8 pancake lens, super tiny. There is a version 2 out of this at the moment, which adds an aperture ring and weather sealing. But the glass has remained unchanged, which is a little bit strange in my opinion. I mean, this is an old lens, I think, what, 2013-ish? But yeah, I mean, it is pretty good though. I've had this for a few months now since I've had all my Fuji gear, and yeah, it's been a good lens to use. It works out as like a 40mm full frame equivalent, which is sort of, I don't know, feels like a little bit in no man's land. I mean, it's not particularly wide, but it's not particularly, telephoto either. But yeah, it's been fun. So today I've been out to do a POV, and yeah, we'll see what we can get. Alright, so here we are then, out in the street. The sun's out again. Spring has definitely arrived. It's always my favourite time when it starts getting warmer, as I suppose it is with everybody. It's always more pleasant to come and do photography in the sun. Coming up to this first scene then, I see the shadows falling on this little outbuilding here. It's not the most exciting shot, but it's the first shot of the day. Got to get those warm-up shots in, got to get the juices flowing, as it were. But yeah, not the greatest, not the most exciting, but as always, if you enjoy the video, make sure you hit that like button, and if you really like it, then maybe consider subscribing for future videos just like this one. Moving on to the 27mm then. This lens is not the most exciting in the world. It's definitely not going to blow you away with anything that it does. It's just very middle of the road. But for me, for a street photography lens, it's almost perfect, really. You know, it's really small, so it's got this low profile, especially on the XE3 that I'm using here. But yeah, you know, it's not the fastest. f2.8 is the widest it goes, which, you know, most of the time is fine. I'm not looking for mega shallow depth of field when I'm out in the street, usually anyway. But yeah, it's sharp. Autofocus is okay, you know, it's fast enough, I think. But yeah, it's just very middle of the road type of lens, but it you know, very practical for me anyway, at least. For the most part, the autofocus is really reliable and fairly quick, you know, not the fastest. But this image here that I'm about to take was the only one that let me down. It's just a little soft. I took maybe 80 images over the course of this walk, and that was the only one that really missed focus. So, you know, that's pretty good, really. I've definitely had lenses that have performed worse than that anyway, at least. When it comes to sharpness, for me, it's as sharp as I'm ever gonna need. Like, it's considered, I think, possibly Fuji's sharpest lens, or at least one of them. I mean, they don't really make a bad lens, Fuji, from what I've seen. Anyway, I own three. I have the 50mm f2, the 23 f2, and all of them are just sharp, if not too sharp for me. Like, I'm always looking for ways to soften my images anyway. It's just the style that I like to go for. So So sharpness is not really at the top of my list of of things that I need. But yeah, I think it's sharp enough. You're never gonna hear me get too technical about equipment, lenses, cameras. I'm just not interested anymore. You know, if I like what I'm getting, then that's all that matters to me. You know, if I like the image that is being produced, you know, that's it. And people, I think, get too caught up sometimes in technicalities, and you know, they get caught up in pixel peeping, and you know, it just don't make sense to me anymore. And it's depressing. Like, when I'm not gonna say I've never been like that, because I definitely have. It was very important to me to have the ultimate sharpness and looking at everything in such fine detail, but like, I was never satisfied, and I found it depressing. I just, yeah, it sort of got in the way of the creativity in the end. And yeah, these days I've got a completely different frame of mind. I mean, if people want to be like that, then that's up to them, but I'm definitely not like that anymore. Version 2 of this lens adds an aperture ring and weather sealing, but for me those really aren't enough for me to want to upgrade. If they would have maybe upgraded the optics, maybe made this an f2 lens, then you know, it might have been more of an option, but they just didn't distinguish this enough from the version 1 for my liking. You know, if they'd have added those things, then it's almost a no-brainer. But for the extra cost, it seems crazy. Like, I think I paid around maybe almost £200 for this, and I think the version 2's going for 400, 450, something like that. Now, to pay twice as much money for, you know, to get the same image at the end of the day seems crazy to me. Like, you know, maybe weather sealing's important to some people, but an aperture ring, like, really? I know it's one of Fuji's features, but like, to pay double money for the same lens just to get an aperture ring is just like, is mental. So yeah, it's not really an option for me. Like, I just don't see the point. So yeah, I'll be sticking with this one for the foreseeable future, that's for sure. So the focal length is 27mm, which works out at about 41mm full frame. And obviously sitting in the middle of a 50 and a 35, which for me is those are my two favourite focal lengths, especially at the moment, for street photography anyway. And having this sat right in the middle is nice. Like, sometimes when I'm shooting my 23mm, which works out at 35, that can be sometimes a little bit too wide, and then, you know, the 50mm can just be a little bit too narrow. So yeah, this is sort of the happy medium. I don't think it's going to work for everybody, because it's not really a standard focal length as such. But yeah, it's definitely worked for me when I've had it out in the street anyway. It sort of fits that hole nicely. So yeah, it's great if you, like me, are finding a 50, you know, too long, and then a 35 too wide. You know, this will really suit you. conclusion then, I really like this lens. This has worked for me on many of occasions. And yeah, it's not the most obvious of choices for some people. You know, people are more, you know, would more gravitate towards the, you know, a 50 or a 35. But this being a 40mm equivalent, like right in the middle there, it is just really, really great for a general purpose. So yeah, if you, like I said, like me, as stuck in the middle where a 50's too long and a 35's too wide, then this is definitely a good choice. I mean, it's just good enough. It could do with being f2. That's the only issue that I have. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, then yeah, awesome. Like the video and maybe subscribe. But that's all for me for this week. So yeah, I'll see you next time.